Beautiful. Welcome to Potions 101. Tonight, we are going to dive into the art of crafting vibrational essences, or as I like to call them, elixirs. Essence is the proper term. I almost want to say scientific. There are, plenty of companies that actually create essences. And I use the word elixir because I find in the wild, when you tell someone that something is a gemstone or an herbal or a flower essence, they're thinking scent more than what it actually is, which is essentially charged water, is what an essence is, made shelf stable by one of many options. And so tonight we're going to be talking about a method that can be used to create any kind of elixir, whether you're using, plants on the poisonous path or crystals that are toxic or items that you wouldn't want to drink water that it had been dunked in, like a feather or a bone. Um, this method is going to work for all those different kinds of ritual allies. So there's a lot more to learn. This is your basics packaged up so that the idea is that tonight or whenever you're tuning in liminal time and space, welcome, you have the wisdom you need to, like, the practical wisdom and knowledge to craft an elixir in right relationship with your allies, and then hopefully bring it to our next gathering with you to imbibe. Whether you're tuning along in real time, and that next gathering is our Phoenix embodiment on May 16th, 2026, or sometime in the future, because we'll always have one paid and one free gathering every single month inside Inner Orbit's Crystalline Coven. So, yeah, I can't wait to dive in with you tonight. So, as I said, essences and elixirs in this way are first and foremost charged water. And in his book, Hidden Messages in Water, Masaru Emoto writes, "The memory of life arrived on this earth, carried by the soul of water. From this memory, life awoke. The human being emerged." And in this work, he goes on to paint this relationship that we have with water in such a gratifying, celestial, and holy way. And one of the things that Emoto has studied is the crystalline structure and memory of water, the imprint of environmental factors, vibrations, intentions upon water. And if you haven't already read his book, Messages from Water in the Universe, it's one of my number one recommendations getting started out in any kind of energy work, whether that's, getting a Reiki certification, like in my course, Earth Healer, or whether that's practicing witchcraft. This book is, or both, since Earth Healer is kind of both. um, this work is really kind of central. This quality of water. Water is the only material that can exist in a liquid, a gas, and a solid within the normal range of temperatures of life on Earth. And we see creates the way that it creates atomic and molecular bonds occurs in such a way that when we engage intentionally with water, it holds the shape of our intention for us. And Emoto posits that the highest vibrational form that water can take is that of love and gratitude. But when we work with vibrational essences, we're working with that crystalline memory of water to hold the shape and vibration of our chosen ritual allies or circumstances, like a full moon, or it could be a celestial event like the day of an ingress. Like, for example, we could have made one the day Uranus went into Gemini to capture that moment. Um, so when creating essences, we ask the water as a being, as an elemental force of nature, to remember, adapt to, carry, and crystallize the energy of the source, like a piece of amethyst. Or tonight, I'm working with a little trio of Euphoria Light, which is a blue tourmaline in feldspar and mica. Really activating for, well, it for euphoria is the idea, a state of mental yet embodied bliss, with mica really representing like peeling back the layers of the self into the most authentic versions of ourselves. Iolite, which is a third eye opener. So again, calling in clarity, but also dropping a little bit more into the throat for clear communication. And then a little chunk of pink amethyst for uh, essence of the Divine Mother, essence of Queen of Heaven, essence of grounded, unconditional love, to kind of bring that higher dimensional energy down through the crown into the body and rooting us into this experience here, because we are here now. And in this way, tonight we're going to learn how we use Reiki or energy work. And I'm going to pause here because even if you don't have a Reiki certification, we are all channeling universal energy all the time. Reiki teaches us a system through which we can do so in right relationship and in a way that serves the highest good. It's basically a set of best practices for energy work. And you are a channel of energy exactly as you are. You are already an energy worker. So you don't need to have a Reiki certification to create vibrational essences. This is a practice that was passed down to me through my Reiki lineage. And you don't need a Reiki certification to create really powerful vibrational essences. And we'll talk about that as we go on. So essentially, what we're doing is we're using our power as a conductor on this planet, as a channel of energy, as a human being, to introduce the source, these crystalline beings here for me tonight. But it could be like I said, it could be a feather, a bone of some sort, a celestial event, introducing that energy to the water, creating a harmonious relationship and flow between them, and leaving them to charge together so that the water can capture the vibrational imprint of these ritual allies that you've chosen. So you can, in this way, you can make so many different kinds of vibrational essences. You can make them with flowers, plants or trees, gemstones, environmental. For example, like if you went to Stonehenge, you could make a vibrational essence of Stonehenge. If you went to Glastonbury, I think a really cool one that's kind of like, working with the astrological light aspect is going somewhere you can have like a clear view of a meteor shower, and it kind of captures the energy of the land and that light show, right? Channeled meaning if you work with interdimensional beings, deities, if you work with intentions, kind of letting that energy flow through you into the water, or directly into the water, whichever you intend, right? Astrological light, full moon, new moon, an eclipse, um, I, like I said, ingresses, specific meteor showers, and really anything you can think of, you can make. Like this really beautiful art piece from my friend, and I could make an essence of this, don't quite know. I mean, maybe the intention would just be for like beauty magic, or feeling loved and seen by friends. That's probably what that would bring into an essence. We could make an essence of this post-it note. What essence would it have? Remains to be seen. But you truly can make an essence with anything that you desire to make an essence with. And that's why I want to teach indirect infusion in particular tonight, is because obviously we wouldn't want to drink water that a post-it note have been soaking in all night. I'm just kidding. There are stones that are toxic. There are plants that are poisonous. There's dust, there's this, there's that. And so I actually exclusively make indirect infusions in my work. Direct infusion means you're placing the thing directly into the water. That's how a lot of flower essences are made. But I tend to stick to indirect infusions, especially when I'm making them for other people, because there are many more toxic stones than we know, and you never really know what the stone has gone through to get into your hands either. So together, we're going to kind of lace a few of these together tonight, because essentially, what I'm recommending is you gather your allies, place them somewhere out in nature or on your windowsill or on your front porch, or whatever the story is for what you have access to at this time. At whatever it is perfect. But you can kind of work with what's there. So where I'm going to place my elixir tonight when I'm done, which it's so dark, so I'm not going to walk you out there, but there's this tree that used to just be a stump and has, since I moved in, has regrown branches. And on the tree, there's always these mushrooms that grow. They're called dryad saddle, and they're so beautiful and huge. And I like to tuck my essences kind of like up against the tree under those mushrooms. So my essence that I'll create will have the astrological imprint of this evening. So you can look at the birth chart even of the essence you're creating and time it in a way that you want things to fall. Or what I'm suggesting for you all is to create on the new moon. If you're watching this in real time, the new moon is on May 16th, 2026 at 4 p.m. Eastern. So my thought here is that on Friday evening, May 15th, you could set your elixir out. You could collect it after 4 p.m. Eastern and then bring it with you to the Phoenix embodiment if you're joining us for our exclusive paid subscriber gathering. And we'll talk more about that later, but that's kind of like, that's what I'm teeing you up for here. And that new moon in Taurus is quite potent, quite powerful. So I'm so excited to see what you all create. So again, I've kind of touched on this. Tonight, we're not going to be diving into the full scope, or we would literally be here for so long, because the instructions for flower essences are quite different. I mean, not quite different. There's just more steps involved in a flower essence, and they follow a more specific protocol in terms of dosing and like quantity of of flower material, especially when you're working with direct infusion. So we're not really going to get into that tonight, but we do get into it in Earth Healer, my Reiki certification course. So if this awakens something within you, I haven't quite decided when I'm teaching Earth Healer yet, but it's going to be soon. So in the replay and in the notes, like if you're watching the replay now, like the notes are there for you, where you can go ahead and hop on the wait list for Earth Healer so that you're notified as soon as doors open, because we will have limited seats when the course does open because everything is so hands-on, and there are quite a few assignments just to remain in right relationship to the certification process. So anyway, you can get a glimpse of these practices in a PDF guide that I'm going to link for you as well. It's something I put together for a friend. Lainey Love created an oracle deck, and she was doing a summit where everybody could represent one of the cards. And the one that I got was Lemurian Water Keepers, which is just so me. Of course. So of course I did an elixir craft presentation. So I'm going to include the PDF guide for that in these notes for Potions 101. And we'll cover the blends that I go over in there, but it does have instructions for flower essences as well as direct gemstone infusions. And a list of toxic crystals as well, for your reference. So there's a lot of information available for you in the replay email or in the show notes, to kind of guide your practice if you want to take this deeper. And that being said, there's also like so many ways that you can do this. And I'm confident that practitioners have come up with all different kinds of ways to create elixirs over the years. But we're going to focus on indirect infusions, and I'm going to show you what is my current way of creating elixirs, and I'm going to explain how I was doing it before, just in the name of safety, clarity, and brevity. We're going to stick to indirect infusions tonight. So if you scan this QR code, I'll also link it in the show notes, but this QR code leads you to the website where I got my favorite elixir tool. It is this water bottle. Crystal infused water bottles really had their moment. This one actually, instead of having like a crystal, like those soji water bottles, I loved mine. I had a smoky quartz one. Instead of having a crystal in here, there's actually a compartment in the bottom where you can add your own. So it's the perfect little vessel to create an indirect infusion, which basically means we're going to keep the water separate from whatever materials we're putting in here. Now, as you can see, my options for what I could put in here are limited because this is a small area. You can size things up. When I've wanted to use larger items, I've used those big old mason jars and like a pasta pot with that I can still put a lid on top of. But my most common setup before I got one of these, and this link here that I have is not my exact bottle, but it's through the same company that I got mine from. So I'm sure that the quality and standard is the same. And it wasn't bad, like $33 or something like that. And it's from Goddess Provision. So that's where that link takes you. And before I had that, what I was doing was I had one of those glass Pyrex baking dishes with a lid. It doesn't necessarily have to be see-through, but especially if you can at least get your lid to be clear. There are also super, super cute borosilicate glass cauldron looking pots on Amazon that would be so cute for elixir creation. So that's going to be your glass vessel that either a jam jar, like the smaller squatter mason jars, they're about like this big around, that either that or a mason jar can sit inside of. So as I was saying, like one time when I wanted to use this larger feather, I needed a vessel that could withstand some height. So I actually created it in a pasta pot with a lid. Um, and you can also makeshift a lid because we're going to add something for stabilization if we're going to use it for other people, or if we're going to save it and not ingest it or use it immediately. But that cloth with a rubber band over it totally serves in a pinch, especially if you're making an elixir just for you and your friends, not for professional purposes, right? Obviously, when we're creating for other people, especially when we're going to get paid for it, we want to use like sanitary practices. So you want to have your jam jar or mason jar for your indirect infusion, where we're actually going to place the ritual items inside of. The actual tangible ritual allies that you would like to create an essence of, I recommend using spring water because it is more alive than processed water. And then if you want to just immediately use your elixir. So, for example, you're only going to make enough for you to drink on our Phoenix call, or enough for you to, like make tea on one particular night, or use it in your bathwater, or whatever the story is. That's all you need. But if you would like to extend the shelf life and keep this elixir around for a while, you're going to need a mason jar or a bottle to store the mother essence, which we'll go into what that is in a moment, a dropper bottle or jar for your dosage bottle, which again, I'll explain in a moment, a funnel just to make things easier, and you're going to choose your shelf stabilizer. So you want to ask yourself, do I want to be able to drink this in some way, whether that's adding drops to your tea, or just straight onto the tongue, or even just straight up drinking some of it sometimes? Or do you want to use it topically? Do you want to make it into a room mist, an aura mist? Do you want to turn it into a toner? In the case of topical, you're going to want to go witch hazel, in my opinion. And if you want to ingest, you can use glycerin, apple cider vinegar, or the alcohol that I like to use. Like, some people use vodka, some people use like Everclear. I recommend using brandy because it's tasty. A little honey swirled in essence made with brandy is so tasty, honestly. So once you have your practical materials together, really tuning in to set an intention before you gather your ritual allies. Unless they're like screaming at you, then go ahead and grab them. But taking this ritualistic moment to set an intention. When you use this elixir going forward, what feeling or experience do you want it to elicit? What are you hoping its effect will be? So when I was walking around earlier, kind of preparing for tonight, I chose these on a whim just as the music was playing. And what I was really sensing was I wanted to be able to continue to show up to the space, the podcast, my truth, my goals, no matter how insane the outside world gets. Because it's insane out there. I don't know if you've tapped in recently, but what the hecky. Um, so I am really tuned into this um, essence of peace and stability that is able to hold a gaze and hold an awareness with what's going on in the world, while also remaining buoyant, positive, protected, and inspired, and really moving from this place of like inner heaven on earth. So that's really what I'm trying to bring through in this essence. So once you have that intention, you can either seek specific allies like for that. Like if I said, oh, I really want peace, I think if I was using my rational mind, the first thing I would have grabbed was blue lace agate because I associate that stone with peace. But where I was actually led was to the three allies that I shared earlier, the euphorialite, the iolite, and the pink amethyst. Um, and you can feel free to gather any kind of item that will fit in your chosen sealable mason jar or vessel. So as long as you don't have to break it to put it in there, it can be anything. It can be a sprig of rosemary or juniper. It can be a few grains of rice to represent abundance. It can be a little statue that you have. It can be a ring that you love, anything can go in. You can create, again, a vibrational essence of anything. And here, just for your, oh, I'm trying to move myself out of the way. I don't know if I'm actually blocking this for you guys or not. But here, if you want to take a screenshot, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are the ones that came through when I was channeling. So here we are. Um, a lot of these actually do apply to multiple chakras, but they're classified in the one that I feel them for the strongest. So, and you all will have access to these slides in the show notes as well and the replay email. But just in case you want it tonight, I'm gonna move on rather than read these all out loud. There's a lot, and there's more where that came from. If you have a collection or you're gonna go out and source, I always recommend having the Book of Stones on hand because it has a reference in an index in the back where you can like look up qualities and it tells you stones that resonate. So it's super handy. And like, I know you can just Google it, but there's something about the research aspect for me. But maybe it's just my 29-degree Sagittarius moon. Um, so once you've chosen your allies and you have all your practical materials in order, you're going to cleanse your allies in a way that feels aligned for you. And you can do this with smoke. You can do this with running water. I ran my allies underwater before coming in here. And then you're going to open your jar or whatever vessel that will hold your ritual items. And as you place each item in, call on it by name and by intention. So I gave the example of rosemary for remembrance, but here I'm actually going to add them one by one. So euphoria light for joyful expression, clarity and communication, deep understanding and expression of self, and inner peace. Iolite for clarity and vision, for clarity and communication, for my words being like a magnet for the people who are meant to learn from me. And finally, pink amethyst for surrounding and immersing myself in the energy of the Divine Mother, the presence of absolute, infinite, grounded love, and a sense of protected peace. And then we'll seal that off. And if this was like a little jam jar and I was doing the dual vessel option, I would then take this and place it into the larger vessel. But what I'm going to do is just flip this up. And then bring your water into your hands. And I always like to have my water in some kind of pretty vessel. You can just do it with like the bottle that the water comes in, but like if you have a pitcher or I'm using this chalice. So bringing it into your hands or into your chest and just really commune with it, really calling upon its crystalline memory structures, asking it to hold the frequency of the ritual allies you gathered, to reflect the light of the current astrology, to shimmer with the light or glittering darkness of the current moon phase. And when you feel complete, pour the water into the larger vessel or into your infuser bottle. And you can whisper your intentions. You can gaze lovingly, thinking of your intentions. It's whatever most aligns for you. And then placing that lid on. So then, if you don't already have a place out in nature or in your window that you regularly charge allies under the moonlight, you can take a wander with your vessel and see where it wants to go. Every time I move, I have to find out where they're supposed to go because I've moved quite a few times over the last few years, and I always have to be creating elixirs. So if you let the first one or even each one guide you to exactly where it wants to go, especially if you have multiple options, you might be surprised. It might not be the place you think is most obvious. I recommend leaving an elixir to charge for at least 4 hours, and I usually like to leave it for both day and nighttime hours, unless I have a very specific intention that requires only one of those influences. So, um, you know, if I was making a visibility elixir and the moon was new. So, for example, like this week, if you're making an elixir about visibility, you might want to use only daytime hours where the sun is actually like, it's like sunny outside. Because if we're capturing a super overcast day or a night where the moon isn't going to rise or the moon isn't going to be visible or whatever the story is, we're not really capturing the light that best reflects the essence we're trying to create. Um, for me, this intention, it doesn't really matter as much what moon phase it is, what's going on astrologically. Certainly that will have an impact and an influence. So it'll be important to understand, but it's not necessarily what I'm asking this water to be charged with, if that makes sense. So when you are placing your stones, allies, what have you, in with the water, and especially once the water is there, what we're really doing is we're making an introduction of the stones to the water, to the land where you're going to place it, to the sky that it's placed underneath, right? And really being with all of these frequencies and asking the water to hold the frequency of the highest potential of each one. And so once you've left your elixir to charge, and you feel complete charging it, whether that's, on the same day or it's overnight or it's 2 nights from now. I once made eclipse essences that felt so powerful that once I brought them inside, they were primarily going to be gemstone essences, but I had charged them under an eclipse. And I was like, I want them to have that eclipse energy, and I want them to primarily hold the gemstones influence. So I actually then brought them inside after the eclipse and left them on an altar to charge for like the rest of the week. So it's like just because your timer says 4 hours is done, or just because it's the next morning, doesn't necessarily mean that's your elixir's time. So really listening to your intuition. So once you feel complete, re-enter your ritual state of mind and retrieve your materials from their resting place, really starting to sense the magic of your elixir as you bring it back to your workstation. If you want to use this elixir immediately, nothing more is required. You can drink it, anoint with it, use it in a ritual bath, make tea. The possibilities truly are endless. But if you want to store some or all of your elixir, you need to make it shelf stable first. Technically, it's water, so you could pop it in the fridge. However, especially when we're leaving items outside, like in this bottle, the likelihood of anything like getting into it is small. But when we're working with lids, especially like cloth and rubber band, or even like pot lids are sometimes just kind of loose. Mason jars, if we're working with two mason jars, that's like a little more secure. But my point being here, like you don't know exactly what could be in your water. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, your elixir will be good in your fridge for like 14 days. And then you get sick because some kind of little bug got in there. I don't know how that works. I'm not a doctor. So what I will say is if you don't want to immediately ingest it, I recommend making it shelf stable because those shelf stabilizers also kind of have like astringent qualities for the most part. Maybe not glycerin, but vinegar and alcohol both have, and witch hazel have a sterile quality to them, especially at a 50-50, like 1-to-1 ratio. So all of this blabbering to say, add your chosen stabilizer, whatever it is, whether topical, again, I'm recommending witch hazel. Internal, I really love brandy or apple cider vinegar. You can also use glycerin. I do not use glycerin, so I'm not like the best person to speak on that. But once you add that 50% stabilizer, equal part stabilizer, this is your mother essence. This is the strongest, most undiluted version of your elixir. Now, of course, when we're ingesting it immediately, I don't recommend diluting it. And that is actually the strongest, but that's not necessarily like protocol, right? Because what protocol is on essences is you create the mother essence, 1 part essence to 1 part stabilizer. And then you create what's known as a dosage bottle. So this is going to be, I should have brought one. If I, oh yeah, hold please. This is a dosage bottle. So this one, how much is this one? This one's 2 fluid ounces. So for this size, a 2 fluid ounce, I would want to multiply this by 4, right? Because so I would add 4 to 28 drops of the mother essence into a bottle. So I would fill it up to maybe where the label is with 50% water, 50% stabilizer. And then I would add 4 to 28 drops. Oh, sorry, I banged it on the mic. Um, 4 to 28 drops of the mother essence into this bottle. And then this is what would be sold in stores. If you were to go buy a gemstone essence, that would be the ratio. I do like to make mine stronger than that. You don't have to, and you can follow your intuition. If you want to fill your dosage bottles with your mother essence completely undiluted, that is completely your right. And I love using like the full blown essences. I would say if you're working with really strong energies, you might do something like that on an evening where you don't necessarily have anything else to do, because sometimes it can bring a lot up for processing. If you are, I mean, and most of the people who would be watching this, joining the coven, you're probably here because you're spiritually sensitive and energetically sensitive. So know that if you don't know what your threshold is with working with elixirs, I might go ahead and make a dosage bottle that is standard and then work your way up from there if you know yourself to be sensitive. And then that dosage bottle, this would be for internal, but external use, like anointing or like creating like an aura mist with that witch hazel, it's the same dilution rate is what's recommended. Um, and that I made it in this formula so that you can kind of like scale it to whatever size vessel you're using, as long as you can figure out how many fluid ounces it is. But again, you can also just use your discretion. So next, before we go, I want to share with you a few of my favorite blends. They're also listed in that PDF guide that I'm going to get out to you with the replay. And yeah, this was an offering from 2023. But when I was like resurfacing all of this, when I was thinking of like, what kind of calls could we have this year? This came through, and then it was like the second most voted upon when I did the poll for like what our next call should be. So the Phoenix won. But then when I had to reschedule the Astrology of May, I was like, let's just do this one too, since it placed second. So this blend, Lemurian Creatrix, is meant to awaken the divine creatrix power that was so potent in the Lemurian age. It is meant to amplify our access to higher wisdom while supporting our intuition so that we create from the perspective of our highest self. So in your elixir, you're calling upon a Lemurian seed crystal, a pink amethyst crystal, one rose or some rose petals, and one blue lotus or blue lotus petals. And then you follow the instructions. These are basically just blends, intentional blends that I've created within this thread of accessing our ancient future wisdom for the recreation of a better earth. So figured they were timely. This one felt super important for these times. This one I call code clearing. This blend intends to aid us in clearing some of the stored cellular trauma that stemmed from any soul memories on Lemuria. And we are seeing that play out in a massive scale. So yeah, again, these are energetic allies. And I believe that all ailment begins on the energetic level. Once we have a physical manifestation, oftentimes just addressing the energetics is not going to be enough. So if you're in an active struggle, this is not the only thing that I recommend turning to. And it can absolutely supplement any other kind of support that you could receive. And the best thing about vibrational essences is, and I didn't say this before, but I'm going to say this now just since I'm kind of on this thread, is that you can work with plants that maybe you can't work with the actual plant material of because they might interfere with your medication. So the beauty of vibrational medicine is we can still access the medicine without accessing the contraindication. So for example, if you're on SSRIs, you can't take St. John's wort, but you could use a St. John's wort indirect infusion if you were called to the plant. So it's ways to still connect with energy that might have a physical influence that isn't welcome, but the energetic influence is welcome, if that makes sense. So anyway, I digress. For code clearing, we're working with all of these are going to include a Lemurian seed crystal. And if you don't have one, they're actually like a lot more common on the market than they used to be, in my opinion. But if you don't have one, Lemurian seed crystals, I should have brought one over here, but they have basically almost like barcode etchings on at least one of the faces. That's how they look, like a clear quartz, and they have barcode type striations on at least one of the faces. And they're said to hold the memory because, much like water, quartz holds memory. It's actually used in technology for that reason. And the Lemurian seed crystal holds certain activations, certain codes, and we can awaken them within ourselves. However, if you don't have a Lemurian seed crystal and you do have a quartz crystal, you can ask this of the clear quartz crystal. Um, Through meditation and intention setting, you can, quartz actually can substitute as any crystal. It's considered programmable um, by witches and the tech industry. So Lemurian seed crystal, black tourmaline, unakite, which is a type of jasper, and snowflake obsidian. And both unakite and snowflake obsidian are known for this ability to help us on the level of cellular regeneration. So when you're working with code clearing specifically, when you use this elixir, feeling the way that your cells don't have to continue to tell the story of that original trauma. And we don't have to meaning make about the release of it. It actually just gets to stop being replicated so that the future cells of your body don't carry it on. This is also a powerful blend if someone's undergoing treatment for cancer, for the same reason. And let me know if you have more questions about that specifically. Liquid light is meant to help us embody the frequency that was so revered in Lemuria, raising our vibrational capacity and infusing our energetic body with the water's divine ray. So you'll need, of course, the Lemurian seed crystal, a Larimar crystal, which is what's pictured here. And I guess controversial take. And this is actually supposed to say aura quartz crystal, which is a type of titanium bonding. So it's technically man-made. They look like little pastel rainbows, the crystals. So not like those, not the any of the dyed aura crystals. Those are different. Each one is made by using a different metal or using metal and a dye. But the one I'm recommending, aura quartz, this of course says aqua quartz, but I mean aura quartz. And this, it has no dye, but it is a titanium bond. And so in this way, the aura quartzes always make me feel like deeply alchemical, and bringing in this, I don't know, like rainbow sheen felt really potent. Other ways that we can access that, if you're like I don't do man-made crystals kind of vibe, or you don't have that crystal, another substitute could be rainbow moonstone or labradorite. Yeah, I think those are the two that I would, or a zestulite could be really cool as well. And then you either want to use sun or full moon light. So this is one of those elixirs that the quality of light is going to matter. So you could do a full moon into a daylight, or a daylight into a full moon. But because we're really looking for that like peak light energy, we don't really want it to be a waning crescent moon, because that's barely lit, or like a new moon night and like no daytime hours. You could do it, and it wouldn't be quite the same frequency as this intention here. It would be its own essence, which is beautiful in and of itself. And then I think this is the last one. Akashic Codex is intended to aid you as you uncover more soul memories from Lemuria and beyond. So petrified wood, I don't know where I got the information from actually, but when I got into crystal healing, I got into it because I was like already doing like more like esoteric practices, like lucid dreaming and astral projection, and like journeying through meditation, trying to like CE5 experiences, and I came upon an article that posited that petrified wood helps with time magic and time dilation, as well as like time dilation and contraction in energy work, and the ability to help us like access past life material. And I believe all of those things to be true. And I cannot find that article anywhere. I don't know what book I read it in. I don't know if it was on the internet, but 19-year-old Auburn absolutely bought petrified wood based on that information. And then I cannot find the source like in adulthood. Now that I'm actually trying to share this wisdom with other people, it's written in a notebook somewhere, but I don't have the source. Petrified wood allows us to access a more timeless nature. Petrified wood is an ally that you can call on if you're on a deadline and you're not far enough along in the project, or you really want to slow down and enjoy the moment, or and you can also speed things up with that timeless quality as well. But I do think it's a little more for time dilation than time contraction, because what a petrified wood crystal is where it's literally petrified wood. It's where waters rose above these fallen trees. And when the water washed out and dried up, it left the wood wholly changed. And the mineral deposits that it left behind completely, basically fossilized or petrified the wood. Um, you can make Akashic Codex without the ibis jasper. You could add something else in that's a little grounding, such as red jasper would be like a more common find. I'd also say maybe ocean jasper would be all right as well as your obsidian and Lemurian seed crystal. And that ibis jasper is another one that really helps us to access that like Akashic space of like time out of time, um, connecting the dots between lifetimes. So it is an important crystal in this blend, and it's not one that you can find everywhere. I do have a personal piece of ibis jasper that I make essences with frequently, and I would be, if you can't get your hands on ibis jasper or a piece of it that really resonates, um I could, we can always chat about essence if you're interested, because I do custom essences. Actually, fun fact about me, I think we're going to talk about Ignite in a second, but when I first started out in 2018 reading cards, I also made vibrational elixirs. So if you sat with me for like 20 minutes or more, I would reserve the final 5 minutes of the reading to like make an essence based on your reading. And I had like 32 individual stone essences. So instead of like combining the way I'm kind of teaching it here, I would make like just a smoky quartz essence, just a red jasper essence, just a pink amethyst essence, so that I could blend them at will, like butterfly wing, coyote bone, you know what I'm saying? And like blend them on the spot. And oh my God, it was one of the most fulfilling things. I can't wait to be doing more witchcraft in person with y'all in 2026. But for now, we'll stick to our virtual gatherings. And our next one is on Saturday, May 16th. We're going to be doing a Phoenix embodiment, really paying homage to my roots with this one. I started reading with the Animal Spirit Oracle, as I was just saying, in 2018. And the first spirit card in this deck is the Phoenix. And this is really where, now, of course, I'd heard of the Phoenix before, but this deck was really where my work with the Phoenix began. And in this way of the Phoenix as this journey from the root chakra, rising up through the sacral into the solar plexus, bursting into flame, and then falling to ash down through these same centers. And how when we're on the rise and when we're in ash, we can't hold ourselves accountable to being the same version of ourselves in one phase than another, because it's cheapening the process almost, right? It's taking us out of the authentic flow of our energy, of our power as the Phoenix. And so in this embodiment ritual, what we're going to do is we're going to find where we feel we are at in this journey. And we're going to nutrify ourselves for our next rise. And whether you're on the rise and you're feeling ablaze, you can join us. Whether you're feeling super, um, you know, embery, you're feeling deep and cavernous, you're feeling in this falling to ash, you're feeling in this deepening into rest, wherever you are in your Phoenix embodiment right here, right now is perfect. And I believe each of you, wherever you are, is going to walk away feeling more nourished and supported on your way. So this is our paid gathering. So we're going to talk about, we'll do, a transmission on the Phoenix, and then we're going to have a meditative experience. So we'll drop in, meditate together, and then we'll hold circle afterward for anybody who does join us live. And as always, those shares after the recording are always kept private just between the folks who come and share. So if you are not already a paid subscriber, you can upgrade your prescription. It's prescribed, actually. You can always upgrade your subscription. It's just $8 a month, or you can drop in, and I'll have both of those links for you in the show notes. Our next free gathering is on Sunday, May 31st. Of course, we're gathering for the astrology of June to kind of anchor into the important astrological events of the month to come. And then, as I said, you can always unlock our paid gatherings or join a la carte. And there are all the details on that QR code for you. And I'm going to stop our share here. Thank you so much. Let's stop the recording.